Let us leave the waking world behind. Let the noise of the day soften and fade. We are going on a journey, not through space, but through time, deep into the quiet heart of the past. Our destination is a dream, a network of paths that whispered across the world, connecting empires and hearts and minds. It is a story that is not about a single road, but about many, a web of shimmering, half-forgotten threads. Historians today might call them the Silk Routes, a name that came much, much later, a name given by a German geographer in 1877, long after the last camel had made its journey. But the name we give it now does not matter. What matters is the feeling, the echo, the gentle pull of a connection that is as old as civilization itself. Before the first bolt of silk ever began its long, slow journey westward, other paths were already etched into the earth. Imagine the world 5 centuries before the birth of Christ. The great Achaemenid Empire of Persia stretches its hand across the land. Its ruler Darius the Great desires not just conquest, but order and connection, and so he commands the creation of a great road, the Royal Road, a marvel of its age. It runs for more than 1,600 miles, a lifeline of packed earth and stone, connecting the city of Susa in the heart of Persia all the way to the shores of the Mediterranean Sea in modern-day Turkey. Along this road, at steady intervals, are postal stations, manned day and night, with fresh horses always ready, waiting. An imperial message could cross the empire with breathtaking speed, a relay of riders galloping through sun and storm. Of these Persian messengers, the Greek historian Herodotus would write that nothing in the world could travel faster, neither snow nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night could stay these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. These ancient paths, these arteries of empire, were not yet the Silk Road, but they were its precursors, its first faint heartbeats. The Persians expanded them, sending smaller veins out towards the Indus Valley and down into the ancient lands of Mesopotamia and Egypt. They were threads of power that would one day become threads of commerce and of dreams. Then, a new wind blows from the west. A young king from Macedonia, Alexander the Great, leads his armies across the known world. His conquests stretch from Greece all the way to the edge of India in the 4th century before Christ. He walks upon the old Persian roads, but he is not just a conqueror, he is a founder, a sower of seeds, in a fertile valley on the very edge of what will one day be China. He founds a new city, Alexandria Eschate, Alexandria the farthest. Here he leaves his wounded veterans, Macedonian soldiers, in a strange and distant land. They settle, they build, and in time they marry into the local populace. Their children and their children's children create a new culture, a unique blend of Greek and Bactrian life, a living bridge between West and East, waiting patiently for a connection they could not yet imagine. These were not yet the Silk Roads, but the ground was being prepared. The memory of these ancient connections, the Persian Road, the Greek city, the Lazarite Way, carrying blue stones from the mountains, the Nephrite Way, carrying green jade. All these paths were humming quietly, waiting for the one journey, the one story that would awaken them all and weave them together into a single, magnificent tapestry that would change the world forever. So let us drift now on the quiet currents of time to the moment of that awakening, the moment a great empire in the east turned its gaze to the west and sent one man into the unknown. Now, let the world of empires and armies fade into a soft murmur, and let us focus on a single story, the story of one man, whose journey was not meant to begin a road of trade, but to secure the survival of an empire. Our story begins in the 2nd century before Christ, in the magnificent Han Dynasty of China. This is a powerful, prosperous civilization, but it lives under a shadow, a constant persistent threat from the north. From the vast, windswept steppes, a nomadic people known as the Xiongnu sweep down in raids, testing the borders, disrupting the peace. They are master horsemen, elusive and formidable. A thorn in the side of the great Han Emperor, Wudi, a ruler of immense ambition and vision. Emperor Wudi sits in his palace and dreams of a solution. He has heard whispers, rumors carried on the wind, of another people far to the west, a people called the Yuezhi. They too are enemies of the Qian, having been driven from their lands by the northern nomads. An idea forms in the emperor's mind, a grand strategic vision. If he could only reach the Yuezhi, if he could forge an alliance, together they could crush the Qian from both east and west. It is a bold plan, but the lands to the west are a mystery, a blank space on the imperial maps. No one from the Han court has ever traveled so far and returned. Who could undertake such a perilous mission? Who could be trusted with the fate of the empire? The emperor's choice falls upon a man named Zhang, a court official, a military man of courage and conviction, known for his integrity and his knowledge of the frontier lands. In the year 1308, Zhang is summoned before the emperor. He is given his commission to travel into the unknown west, to find the Yuezhi, and to propose a military alliance in the emperor's name. It is a mission of diplomacy, born of military desperation. There is no talk of silk, no dream of commerce, only the urgent need for allies. Zhang accepts the monumental task. He assembles a party of around 100 men, loyal followers ready to face the unknown with him. Among them is a guide, a Xiongnu man named Ganfu, who had been captured in a previous conflict and now served the Han, with the emperor's blessing and the weight of a dynasty's hopes on their shoulders. The small party sets out, turning their faces to the west and walking into legend. Their journey, however, is almost over before it has truly begun. As they travel through the borderlands, they are ambushed and captured by the very enemy they sought to outmaneuver. The Xiongnu, Zhang, the great Han envoy, is now a prisoner. He is brought before the leader of the Xiongnu, but he does not bow. He does not renounce his mission. He carries himself with the dignity of his office, and though he is a captive, he remains an envoy. For 10 long years, he is held by the Xiongnu, a decade, a lifetime. He is given a Xiongnu wife, and with her he has a son. He lives among the nomads, learning their ways, understanding their culture, but in his heart, the emperor's command remains, a quiet, steady flame that never goes out. He never forgets who he is or why he was sent. He is simply waiting for his chance, for the moment when his long, patient journey can begin once more. And in that decade of quiet waiting, the destiny of the world hangs, unseen, in the balance. At the image of the patient captive, Zhang, settle in your mind. 10 years have passed, a long, slow decade of watching and waiting. Then, one day, the moment arrives. The vigilance of his Zhishongu captors slackens, and Zhang, along with his loyal guide Ganfu and his Zhishongu family, slips away into the vastness of Central Asia. His mission, so long delayed, is alive once more. He has not found the Yuezhi, but he will not return to his emperor a failure. He pushes westward, deeper into the unknown, following the whispers and rumors he had gathered during his long captivity. His journey now takes him into lands that are like a dream to a man from Han China. He travels along the edge of the Great Tarim Basin, passing through small fortified oasis towns. He crosses the jagged Kunlun Mountains, and finally he reaches a place called Dunhuang in the fertile Fergana Valley, what is now modern-day Uzbekistan. Here he is astonished. The people of Dunhuang are not nomads. They are sophisticated city dwellers, living in walled towns, with a culture of trade and craft that reminds him of the stories of Persia and Bactria. But it is not the cities that take his breath away. It is their horses. The horses of Dunhuang are unlike anything Zhang Qian has ever seen. They are larger, stronger, and faster than the sturdy but small horses of China. They are magnificent creatures, so powerful and graceful that they are spoken of in legend as the heavenly horses or winged horses that sweat blood. As a military man, Zhang Qian understands their significance in an instant. With a cavalry mounted on such steeds, the Han army would have an undeniable advantage over the swift-moving Zhang. The key to his emperor's security, he realizes, may not be an alliance with the Oases, but possession of these celestial animals. His mission begins to transform from a quest for allies to a quest for a new kind of power. He continues his journey, traveling through the lands of Kangju, and finally reaching Daxia, the ancient kingdom of Bactria in what is now Afghanistan. Here, he finds the Oases, the very people he was sent to find. But they have changed. They have found new, fertile lands, and have no desire to return east to fight the Oases. His original mission is a failure. But in Bactria, he makes another startling discovery. He sees cloth and bamboo staffs that he recognizes. They are from Shu, a region in the southwest of China, present-day Sichuan. He learns that they arrived here not from the east, but via a southern trade route through a land called Chengdu, India. This knowledge is a revelation. It means that China is not as isolated as he had believed. Other, unofficial pathways of trade already exist, connecting his world to these distant civilizations. After spending a year in these new lands, documenting their cultures, their economies, and their people, Zhang Qian knows he must return. He has failed in his original task, but he carries something far more valuable than an alliance. He carries knowledge. He carries a new map of the world in his mind. The journey home is no less perilous. He is captured by the Suangu once again, but this time for only a year before he escapes. Finally, in the year 1250 CE, 13 years after he first departed, Zhang Qian returns to the Han capital of Chang'an. Of the 100 men who set out with him, only he and the faithful guide Ganfu remain. He stands before Emperor Wu and tells his story. He speaks of sophisticated cities, of the remnants of Greek culture left by a long-dead king named Alexander, of a southern route to India, and most importantly, of the magnificent heavenly horses of Dunhuang. The emperor and his court are mesmerized. The world, they realize, is far larger and far richer than they had ever imagined. Zhang Qian's report, born from a failed mission, ignites the imagination of the empire. It is this report, this story of a world waiting to be connected, that leads the emperor to officially open the trade routes to the west in 1330 BCE. The Silk Road is about to be born, not from a desire for silk, but from the quest for a heavenly horse. Let us begin our gentle journey now, not as a diplomat or a soldier, but as a traveler, a dreamer, and every great journey must have a beginning. Our journey begins in a city that was, for a time, the greatest city on earth, the magnificent eastern terminus of the Silk Road, the Han and Tang capital of Chang'an, which means perpetual peace. Imagine ourselves materializing like dust motes in a sunbeam in the heart of this sprawling metropolis, the city that is now modern Qian. During the Han Dynasty, it is already a place of immense scale and order, home to nearly 250,000 souls, a city of international importance, the anchor of a new world of trade. The city is laid out on a grand imperial grid, enclosed by a massive wall of pounded earth, thick and strong, a declaration of power and permanence. 12 great gates pierce the walls, each one a formal entry point into the city's bustling life. Inside, 8 main boulevards, impossibly wide, some nearly 180 feet across, crisscross the city. Each boulevard is divided into 3 lanes, a central lane reserved for the emperor, separated by ditches from the lanes for officials and commoners. The air hums with a constant low thrum of activity, the rumble of cartwheels, the chatter of 1,000 conversations, the steady rhythm of a city at the center of its world. Our eyes are drawn to the palace compounds, vast cities within the city. The Weiyang Palace, the Western Palace, is the seat of government where the Han emperors hold their daily meetings with officials. Its main hall is built on a foundation 50 feet high, a man-made mountain that towers over the city, a symbol of the emperor's supreme authority. But Chang'an is more than just a seat of power. It is a crucible of culture. Even in these early days of the Silk Road, the world is already here. In its markets, you can hear languages you do not recognize, see faces from distant lands, smell spices that have already traveled 1,000 miles to reach the starting point. The journey to the west, in a way, begins with the west already present, a taste of the destination before the first step is even taken. Now, let time drift forward, gently like clouds across the moon. We are in the same city, Chang'an, but centuries have passed. It is now the Tang Dynasty, the Golden Age, and the city has blossomed into the most populous and cosmopolitan place on the planet, home to as many as 3 million people, including its sprawling suburbs. The city is now a vibrant tapestry of cultures. It has 2 great markets, the Eastern Market for domestic goods and the Western Market, the true heart of the Silk Road within the city. Here, the air is thick with the scent of sandalwood and camphor, the sight of Sogdian and Persian merchants in their distinctive dress, the sound of foreign music. Here, Zoroastrian and Manichaean temples stand not far from Buddhist pagodas, a testament to the city's confident openness. A caravan is preparing to depart from this western market. Camels, the ships of the desert, groan under the weight of their precious cargo. Their handlers, men with sun-weathered faces, shout commands in 12 languages. The primary cargo, the treasure that gives this journey its name, is silk. Bolts of the shimmering fabric, dyed in brilliant colors, are carefully wrapped and loaded. This thread, so light and soft, is worth more than gold in the lands to the west. It is the engine of this entire enterprise. And so, as the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the city's great walls, the caravan leader gives the signal. The bells on the camels begin to jingle, a soft, rhythmic music. The great journey west, out of the perpetual peace of Chang'an and into the vast unknown, has begun. The gates of Chang'an, the great capital, slowly recede behind us. The hum of the city fades, replaced by the soft, rhythmic sounds of our caravan, the plodding footsteps of the camels, the gentle creak of leather, the distant jingle of a bell. We are moving west, into the first great artery of the Silk Road, a long, narrow passageway of life, known as the Hexi corridor. This corridor is not a road built by men, but a path granted by nature, a geographic miracle that makes the entire journey possible. Imagine this landscape in your mind's eye. To our left, to the south, rise the magnificent Qian Mountains, their peaks, often capped with snow, even in the warmer months, scrape against the deep blue sky. They are a formidable barrier, a great wall of stone and ice, but they are also the source of all life in this region. From their snowy heights, rivers and streams are born, flowing down from the mountains and breathing life into the arid land below. These rivers, like the Qian and the Shul, are the reason the corridor exists. They water a chain of precious fertile oases, strung together like green jewels on a dusty string. These oases are our stepping stones, our lifeline through this challenging land. To our right, to the north, is a different kind of barrier, just as imposing. Here lies the vast, intimidating expanse of the Gobi Desert, a sea of sand and gravel that stretches to the horizon, along with the rocky Beishan Mountains. It is a place of harsh winds and stark emptiness, a land where life struggles to hold on. Our path, the Hexi corridor, is therefore a thin ribbon of existence, a fragile channel of green, squeezed between the life-giving mountains and the life-taking desert. It is a natural funnel, concentrating all movement, all trade, and all life into its narrow 1,000-kilometer-long embrace, all trade and all life into its narrow 1,000-kilometer-long embrace. For weeks, our caravan follows this path. The journey is slow and measured. We travel from one oasis to the next, replenishing our water and resting our animals. We pass through cities that are themselves monuments to this unique geography. Cities like Lanzhou and Wuwei and Zhang. In each one, we find bustling markets and other caravans, some heading west like us, others returning east, their camels laden with goods from distant Persia, India, or the lands of the Romans. The corridor is a two-way street, a constant flow of goods, people, and stories. The very air is thick with the energy of exchange. We are in a channel, not just of land, but of culture. The mountains to our south are silent guardians, their presence a constant, comforting sight. They are the reason for the grass that feeds our camels, the water that quenches our thirst, the shade of the trees in the oases where we rest. The corridor is their child, and we are merely grateful guests, passing through its protected realm, moving ever westward, towards the edge of the empire and the true beginning of the great unknown. Our slow, rhythmic journey through the Hexi corridor continues. The landscape becomes more stark, the green of the oasis more precious. We are approaching the westernmost edge of the corridor and the westernmost edge of the Chinese Empire itself. Ahead of us lies a place of immense importance, not just a location on a map, but a threshold in the mind of every traveler, a place of passage of farewells and of new beginnings. This is the region of Dunhuang, and guarding it are two legendary gates, the Yangguan, or Southern Gate, and the more famous Yumenguan, the Jade Gate. The Jade Gate, Yumenguan, is not a grand ornate structure. It is a fortress of packed earth, square and solid, weathered by centuries of sand and wind. It stands as a stark, lonely sentinel in the vast landscape. Here, the Great Wall of China, that immense dragon of stone and earth, peters out into the desert. This is the end of the line, the last bastion of imperial authority, the final symbol of the order and protection of the Han Empire. To pass through this gate heading west is to leave China and to step into the vast, unpredictable world of the western regions. The gate earned its name from the precious cargo that passed through it. Great caravans returning from the south, from the Oasis kingdom of Khotan, would carry priceless jade, the most revered stone in Chinese culture. This jade would enter the empire through this very gate, and so it became the Jade Gate, a name that links the physical place to the very purpose of these long and perilous journeys. For our caravan, arriving here is a moment of profound significance. We rest in the nearby oasis of Dunhuang, a vital sanctuary and military outpost, a final chance to gather supplies, to repair equipment, and to strengthen our resolve before facing the trials ahead. Dunhuang is a bustling, nervous place, full of soldiers, merchants, monks, and adventurers, all gathered at this precipice of the known world. The air is filled with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The day comes when we must depart. Our caravan approaches the Jade Gate. The Chinese soldiers stationed here watch us with impassive eyes. They check our documents, levy the final taxes. Their presence is the last vestige of the familiar order we have known. Once we pass through the archway, we are on our own. The caravan leader looks back one last time at the gate, at the faint line of the wall, at the last symbol of the empire. Then he turns his face to the west, and the view is utterly transformed. Before us lies nothing but the immense, shimmering emptiness of the desert. Here, at the Jade Gate, the road splits. The single artery of the Hexi corridor now divides into two main paths, a northern route and a southern route, both designed to skirt the edges of the most formidable obstacle of the entire journey, the great Taklamakan desert. A choice must be made. Which path holds more promise? Which holds less danger? The decision rests with the caravan master as he gives the signal to proceed. A quiet solemnity falls over our group. We have crossed the threshold. We have passed through the Jade Gate. The world of China is behind us. The world of the Silk Road, in all its wildness and wonder, lies before us. We have left the Jade Gate behind us, and now we face the true test of the traveler, the great silent expanse of the Taklamakan Desert. This is the heart of the Tarim Basin, an immense sea of sand, the second largest shifting sand desert in the world. Its name, spoken in the local Uyghur tongue, is a quiet warning, a chilling piece of advice. Taklamakan, you go in, but you do not come out. The Chinese called it Lulan, the Sea of Death. No caravan dares to cross its center. Instead, we cling to its edges, following the life-giving string of oases that skirt its northern or southern rim, our path dictated by this immense, unforgiving wilderness. The sun climbs high into the sky, and the world dissolves into a shimmering heat haze. The silence is profound, deeper than any quiet you have ever known. It is broken only by the soft padding of the camels' feet on the sand, the rhythmic creak of their burdens, and the whisper of the wind. The dunes are alive. They shift and change with the breeze, their shapes constantly remade. They rise up like great sleeping dragons, their spines sharp against the sky. Their colors shift with the light, from pale gold at dawn to deep orange in the afternoon, to purple in the long shadows of dusk. It is a landscape of stark, terrible beauty, hypnotic and dangerous. The journey is a slow, walking meditation. Days bleed into one another, measured not by clocks, but by the rising and setting of the sun. The desert plays tricks on the mind. A shimmering lake appears on the horizon, a perfect inviting pool of blue. But it is a mirage, a phantom of heat and light that vanishes as you approach the wind. When it rises, can become a Caravan, a black hurricane, a terrifying storm of sand that can blot out the sun and swallow a caravan whole. In the quiet moments, the old legends of the desert creep into your thoughts. Tales are whispered around the campfire at night, stories of ancient cities filled with unimaginable treasures, lost and buried forever beneath the shifting sands. They tell of demons and spirits that haunt the dunes, luring travelers from the path with ghostly voices or phantom lights. The truth of these stories matters less than their effect. They are a constant reminder to be vigilant, to respect the power of this place. Sometimes the desert offers its own grim warnings. We pass by the bleached bones of a camel, half buried in the sand, a silent testament to a journey that ended too soon. The remains of those who strayed from the path, who tried a shortcut, or whose water ran out, serve as a stark map of where not to go. This desert, in its harshness, is the great filter of the Silk Road. It is the reason why only the most precious, most valuable goods are worth carrying. Heavy, bulky items have no place here. The desert demands that its cargo be light and its profits high. It dictates the economics of the entire route, ensuring that the silk, the spices, the gems that survive this passage are rendered all the more priceless by the trial they have endured. It is a silent, powerful gatekeeper, and as we travel under its vast, watchful sky, we understand that to cross this land is not just a journey, it is an achievement, a victory of resilience and of hope over the sea of death. After the long, silent trial of the desert, the first glimpse of an oasis is a miracle, a dream made real. It begins as a faint, dark line on the horizon, a smudge of green against the endless yellow of the sand. As our caravan draws closer, the line resolves into trees, the deep green of poplars and tamarisks. We begin to smell it before we see it fully. The scent of damp earth, of growing things. We begin to smell it before we see it fully. The scent of damp earth, of growing things, of life. To a traveler whose world has been nothing but sand and sky for weeks, this is the sweetest perfume imaginable. These oases, places like Dunhuang, Hotan, Kuka, and Kashgar, are not merely rest stops, they are jewels of life, verdant havens that make the Silk Road possible. Let us first drift back to the oasis we visited before Dunhuang, at the eastern edge of the Great Desert. Its name means blazing beacon, a fitting title for a place that was a light in the wilderness for 1,000 years. But Dunhuang's true treasure lies just outside the town, carved into a cliff face. Here we find the Mogao Grottos, the caves of 1,000 Buddhas. For centuries, merchants, pilgrims, and patrons, grateful for a safe passage through the desert, or praying for a safe journey to come, funded the creation of these magnificent cave temples. There are hundreds of them, a honeycomb of sacred art, hidden from the world. Inside, the walls are covered with vibrant murals, telling the stories of the Buddha's life, depicting celestial beings, and portraying the daily lives of the people of the Silk Road. There are sculptures, serene Buddhas, and graceful bodhisattvas, their faces calm and compassionate. It was here, in a sealed chamber known as the Library Cave, that an astonishing treasure was hidden for nearly 900 years, a trove of tens of thousands of manuscripts, paintings, and textiles, written in 12 languages, representing a multitude of faiths: Buddhism, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, Manichaeism, all resting together in the quiet dark. These oases were more than just watering holes, they were cultural crucibles, because travelers from all corners of the world were forced to stop and congregate here. These isolated pockets of life became incredibly fertile ground for the mixing of ideas, art, and beliefs. The art in the Mogao caves is a perfect testament to this fusion. You can see the influence of Greek art, carried from the distant Mediterranean via the legacy of Alexander the Great in the flowing robes of a Buddhist deity. You can see Indian artistic styles blended with Chinese techniques, creating something entirely new, unique to this place. The oases were not passive rest stops, they were active, vibrant laboratories of culture, where the diverse elements carried by the caravans were mixed and transformed. Now, let our caravan continue its journey around the desert's rim to the great western oasis of Kashgar. Here, the northern and southern routes around the Taklamakan meet once more, making Kashgar the focal point of the Western Silk Road, a true crossroads of civilizations. Entering the Kashgar market is like stepping into a living map of the world. Here, you see merchants from China, their camels laden with silk and porcelain, bartering with traders from Persia, offering spices and glass. You see nomadic horsemen from the steppes, selling strong horses, and turbaned men from India with chests full of gems and ivory. The air is a symphony of sounds and smells, the bleating of sheep, the hammering of coppersmiths, the aroma of roasting meat, of exotic spices, of baking bread. To walk through an oasis like Kashgar is to walk through the world in miniature. It is a reward for surviving the desert, a dazzling, vibrant reminder of what this long journey is all about. Connection in these precious, irreplaceable islands of light. Leaving the vibrant, low-lying oasis of Kashgar behind, our journey now changes dramatically. The path begins to climb, gently at first, then more insistently. We are leaving the desert basin and ascending into the next great challenge of the Silk Road, a realm of rock and ice, of thin air and profound silence. We are entering the Pamir Mountains, known to ancient travelers and modern explorers alike as the Bami Dunya, the roof of the world. The landscape transforms around us. The sparse desert scrub gives way to alpine meadows, and then to bare rock. The air grows cooler, crisper, and thinner. Every breath is a conscious effort. The sun is brilliant in the clear, high-altitude sky, but it offers little warmth. The scale of this place is almost impossible to comprehend. We are surrounded by colossal peaks, rising to over 20,000 feet, their jagged, snow-covered summits forming a fortress against the sky. These are not mere mountains. They are a knot, a great geological hub from which the other mighty ranges of Asia, the Hindu Kush, the Tian Shan, the Himalayas, radiate outwards. We are at the very heart of the continent, at its highest point. The path here is not a road. It is a treacherous rock-strewn trail, snaking its way through narrow valleys and over dizzying passes that can reach 17,000 feet in elevation. Our camels, so suited to the desert, struggle on the rocky terrain. Here, sturdy yaks are often used, their powerful bodies and sure feet better adapted to the steep inclines. The progress of our caravan is slow, painfully slow. We are ants crawling across a giant's rock garden. The silence is absolute, broken only by the howling of the wind as it whips through the passes and the sound of our own labored breathing. At night, the sky is a spectacle of impossible beauty. With no cities for hundreds of miles, the darkness is complete, and the stars blaze with a brilliance you have never seen. They seem so close, so bright, you feel as though you could reach out and touch them. But the beauty is tinged with danger and with ancient awe. The people who live in these mountains, the hardy nomads who graze their flocks in the high valleys, whisper legends of the spirits that inhabit these peaks. They speak of the Jinn, ancient powerful beings older than time, who guard the secrets of the mountains and punish those who trespass with disrespect. Travelers like the Chinese monks, Faxian and Shenzang, wrote of the terrifying dragons and spirits that haunted these passes, making the journey a trial of faith as much as endurance. This crossing of the Pamirs is more than just a physical challenge. It is a profound transition. It is the great continental divide, not just of watersheds, but of cultures. To the east, behind us, lies the world of China, of the Han and the Tang. To the west, spread out below the mountains we are now crossing, lies a different world, the world of Sogdiana, of Persia, of India, and beyond them, the distant lands of the Romans and Byzantines. The act of surmounting the roof of the world is a powerful metaphor. We are literally and figuratively rising above the world, and when we descend on the other side, we will be in a new realm, having transcended the boundaries of geography and of culture. This is the pivot point of the entire Silk Road, the high, lonely, and sacred heart of the journey. Having made our way down from the dizzying icy heights of the Pamir Mountains, we descend into a new landscape, a new world. The air grows warmer, thicker, and the land becomes gentle and fertile again. We have entered the ancient land of Sogdiana, a region nestled in the river valleys of what is now Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and we are approaching its most famous city, a name that has been whispered in markets and caravanserais for 1,000 miles, a name that sounds like a promise of riches and wonder: Samarkand. Samarkand, the golden peaches of Samarkand, were legendary in the poetry of Tang China, a symbol of the exotic and the desirable. But the true treasure of this land was not its fruit, it was its people. The Sogdians, for centuries, from roughly the 3rd to the 8th century AD, these remarkable people were the undisputed masters of the Silk Road. They were not a great military empire like the Han or the Romans. Their power was not in armies, but in acumen, in adaptability, and in connection. They were a nation of merchants, the essential middlemen, the beating heart that pumped the lifeblood of commerce across the vast body of Asia. The Sogdians were born to the road. There was a saying that when a Sogdian boy was born, honey was placed on his tongue, so he would grow to speak sweet, persuasive words, and glue was placed in his palms, so that he would grasp gems and coins as if they were stuck to his hands. They were natural entrepreneurs, and their language, Sogdian, became the common tongue, the lingua franca of the entire Silk Road. A merchant from China could speak it to a trader from Persia, and they would be understood. The Sogdians established communities, small colonies of their people, in oasis towns and cities all along the routes, from the borders of China to the ports of the Black Sea, creating a vast, reliable network of trust and trade. They were more than just transporters of goods. They were what one writer called cultural bees. As they traveled, they picked up ideas, religions, and arts like pollen, and spread them from one civilization to another. They were instrumental in carrying Buddhism from India into China. Their caravans were often joined by monks, and the Sogdians themselves adopted many faiths, practicing Mazdaism, Christianity, Manichaeism, and Buddhism with equal ease. They were also skilled artisans in their own right, famous for their exquisite metalwork and their vibrant textiles, which were prized across Asia. They absorbed the cultures they encountered, and they exported their own. Their energetic twirling dance, the Sogdian whirl, became a sensation in the great capital of Chang'an, a fashionable craze among the Tang elite. They were the ultimate cultural translators, the curators of the Silk Road. They understood what the West wanted from the East, and what the East wanted from the West. They were the ones who decided which goods, which ideas, and which fashions were valuable, and they facilitated their exchange with unparalleled skill. The Silk Road, we begin to understand, was not just a road between China and Rome. It was a Sogdian road, a network built, managed, and enriched by these master traders, whose home Samarkand now lies before us, a city built on the profits of connection. Our journey continues through the fertile lands of Sogdiana, and we leave the golden city of Samarkand behind, traveling towards another jewel of the Silk Road, the noble city of Bukhara. If Samarkand was the heart of Sogdian commerce, Bukhara was its soul, a center of learning, spirituality, and breathtaking beauty, a city whose very architecture tells the story of the cultures that flowed through it. As we approach, the first thing we see rising from the dusty plains is a magnificent sun-baked tower, the Kalian minaret. It soars into the sky, a pillar of intricate brickwork, so beautiful that it is said that even Genghis Khan, when his Mongol hordes sacked the city, was so struck by its beauty that he ordered it to be spared. The city itself, like many in this region, is a maze of narrow, winding alleys and bustling marketplaces. But it is the monumental buildings, the mosques, the madrasas, or schools of learning, and the mausoleums that truly define the city's character. We enter the courtyard of a great madrasa, and the noise and heat of the city fall away. We are in a world of cool, silent geometry and dazzling color. The walls are covered in a tapestry of glazed ceramic tiles, intricate mosaics of deep blues, luminous turquoises, and brilliant whites. The patterns are mesmerizing, complex geometric designs, intertwining floral motifs, and elegant bands of Arabic calligraphy, quoting verses from the Quran. The architecture is a testament to the fusion of cultures. The grand arched entranceway, called a pishtak, is a feature of Persian design. The brilliant turquoise of the domes is a color that became synonymous with the Timurid dynasty that later ruled this land, a color meant to evoke the beauty of the heavens. The very construction of these buildings speaks of the exchange of knowledge. The architects and builders were masters of their craft, using baked brick and a special high-strength mortar called gauge to create enormous soaring domes and complex vaulted ceilings. Their designs were based on sophisticated principles of applied geometry, knowledge that had been developed in the great academic centers of the Islamic world, like Baghdad, where scholars translated and synthesized the mathematical wisdom of the Greeks, the Persians, and the Indians. To look at a building in Bukhara is to read a story written in brick and tile, a story of faith, art, and science, brought together from across the known world. Even the private homes are designed with a deep understanding of place, built with thick earthen walls to insulate against the summer heat and winter cold. Their rooms are ranged around a central courtyard, creating a private, peaceful oasis, a cool microclimate, shielded from the dust and noise of the street. We wander through the city as the sun sets. The last light catches the blue tiles, making them glow with an inner fire. We hear the call to prayer echoing from the minarets, a sound that has measured the passing of days here for centuries. Bukhara is more than just a city. It is a sanctuary, a place where the material wealth of the Silk Road was transformed into something lasting, something beautiful, a legacy of learning and art. It is a quiet, contemplative place, a perfect place to rest our minds and let the beauty of 1,000 years of history wash over us as we drift deeper into our journey and into sleep. Bukhara's to rest await. The sun is low in the sky, and our long day of travel is coming to an end. Ahead, we see the welcome sight of our sanctuary for the night, a caravanserai. This is not a city or a town, but a building that is a world unto itself, a roadside inn built specifically for the travelers of the Silk Road, a fortress of hospitality in the wilderness. These vital posts are spaced strategically along the major routes, each one just a single day's journey from the next, a distance of about 30 to 40 kilometers. This careful planning ensures that no caravan with its precious cargo and weary travelers has to spend a night exposed to the dangers of the open road, the bandits, the predators, or the harsh elements. From the outside, the Caravanserai looks like a simple, sturdy fortress. It is a large, rectangular structure with high, thick walls of stone or baked earth, and often only a single massive fortified gate, the only way in or out. This design is for security, a place where merchants can bring their entire caravan, camels and all, inside the protective walls and sleep without fear. As our caravan approaches, the great wooden doors swing open, and we pass from the fading light of the outside world into the bustling, enclosed universe of the Caravanserai. The gate closes behind us with a heavy, reassuring thud. We are in a large, open central courtyard. The air is filled with a symphony of sounds and smells, the low groans of camels being unburdened, the whinnying of horses, the bleating of sheep, the shouts of men in a dozen different languages: Sogdian, Persian, Chinese, Turkic, Arabic, all mingle together. The air smells of animal fodder, of dust, of wood smoke from cooking fires, and of the rich, savory aroma of roasting meat and simmering stews. This is the social heart of the Silk Road, the place where the journey pauses and humanity connects. Along the sides of the courtyard are covered galleries and stables where the animals are fed and watered. Above them, often on a second story, are rows of small, simple rooms, alcoves for the human travelers to unroll their sleeping mats and find rest. Some caravanserais are simple and functional, while others are magnificent, like the Aksaray Sultan Han in Turkey, a palace of an inn that could house 1,000 people and hundreds of animals, and even contained its own small mosque in the center of the courtyard. But all of them serve the same essential purpose. They are the physical infrastructure that makes this long-distance trade possible, but their true function is social and cultural. In the evening, after the animals are tended to and the meal is cooked, people gather around the fires. Here, in the flickering light, a merchant from Syria shares stories with a monk from India. A Sogdian trader negotiates a deal with a Chinese silk merchant using a mixture of languages and gestures. News from the great empires is exchanged. Warnings about bandits on the road ahead are passed along. Songs are sung, and friendships are forged. This is the ancient world's information network, a place where trust is built, where reputations are made or lost, and where culture is not just transported, but actively exchanged and created. It is a temporary, recurring community of strangers, all bound by the shared experience of the road. Here, within these 4 protective walls, we are all simply travelers, finding a moment of peace, a shared meal, and a safe place to dream, before the journey begins again at dawn. Let us rest here in the quiet of the Caravanserai and contemplate the reason for this entire journey, the treasure that gives the road its name. Silk. It is a simple thread produced by a small, humble creature, the silkworm, yet this single fiber, this shimmering filament, has launched 1,000 caravans, built cities, and woven together the destinies of empires. Its story is a legend, a secret, and a revolution. Kata's Uva Thing. The story of silk begins in the mists of ancient China thousands of years ago. Legend tells of an empress, Lezu, the wife of the mythical Yellow Emperor, sitting under a mulberry tree, sipping her tea. A cocoon from the tree falls into her hot cup, and as she fishes it out, she finds that she can unravel a single incredibly long and wonderfully strong thread. Whether the legend is true or not, the discovery was monumental. The Chinese learned how to cultivate the silkworms, feeding them a diet of mulberry leaves, and how to carefully unwind their cocoons to harvest the precious thread. This art, called sericulture, was a state secret, guarded more closely than any military strategy for millennia. Silk was reserved for the emperor and the highest nobility, a symbol of power and prestige. It was also used as a form of currency, with bolts of silk used to pay soldiers and officials, and as a high-quality surface for writing and painting. When the Silk Road opened, this secret, magical fabric began its slow journey westward. It traveled in the packs of camels, across the deserts and mountains, passing through the hands of many middlemen, the Sogdians, the Persians, the Parthians. With each step of its journey, its value increased. By the time it reached its final destination, the great Roman Empire, it was worth more than its weight in gold. The Romans were utterly captivated by it. They had never seen or felt anything like it. Its softness, its lightness, its shimmer, it became an obsession, a silk craze that swept through the wealthy elite. Roman poets and historians wrote about it with a mixture of desire and disdain. They marveled at its beauty, but were scandalized by its cost, which drained the Roman treasury of vast amounts of gold and silver. They were also shocked by its sheerness, as Chinese merchants, to make the precious material go further, would unravel the thick Chinese bolts and reweave them into thin, almost transparent fabrics. The writer Seneca complained that the fabric was used to create garments in which there is nothing to protect either the body or the shame of the wearer. In the year 14 CE, the Roman Senate, in a fit of moral panic, actually tried to ban men from wearing silk, deeming it degrading and effeminate, but the prohibition did not last. The demand was too great. The allure of silk was irresistible. For centuries, the secret of sericulture held. But eventually, like all secrets, it escaped. One story tells of a Chinese princess betrothed to a king in Central Asia around the year 400 CE, who smuggled silkworm eggs and mulberry seeds out of China by hiding them in her elaborate headdress, refusing to be parted from the fabric she loved. Later, around 550 CE, the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, eager to break the Persian monopoly on the silk trade, dispatched 2 monks on a secret mission. They returned from China with silkworm eggs hidden inside their hollow bamboo walking sticks, and the silk industry was born in the West. But even after the secret was out, Chinese silk was still considered the finest in the world, a global luxury brand. A simple thread that had clothed emperors, captivated an empire, and tied the 2 ends of the earth together. As we rest, let the image of shimmering silk dissolve and be replaced by something far more humble, far less glamorous, but perhaps even more powerful. A single thin, pliant sheet of paper. While silk clothed the bodies of the elite, paper would come to clothe the minds of humanity. It was the other great secret of Han China, a quiet invention that would travel the same dusty roads as silk, and in its own silent way, remake the world. Before paper, writing was a heavy, cumbersome affair. In China, records were kept on strips of bamboo or wood, or on expensive bolts of silk. In the West, they used clay tablets, wax, or parchment, which was made from the treated skins of animals, and papyrus, a brittle reed from Egypt. These materials were expensive, heavy, or fragile, making it difficult to record, store, and transport knowledge on a large scale. Then, sometime during the Han Dynasty, Chinese ingenuity produced a miracle. By pounding and pressing plant fibers from mulberry, hemp, and other plants, they created a new writing surface. It was light, it was cheap, it was durable, and it could be produced in large quantities. It was paper. Like silk, paper began its journey west along the Silk Road. Its initial spread was closely tied to the spread of religion. Buddhist monks traveling from China to Central Asia, the Indian subcontinent, and beyond, found paper to be the perfect medium for their sacred texts. It was light enough to carry in their packs and durable enough to survive the long journey. They carried paper sutras, and where they settled, they brought the knowledge of how to make it. The technology reached India in the 600s, and soon local paper-making centers began to spring up. Merchants, too, quickly saw its value. It was the ideal material for recording contracts, letters, and ledgers, a lightweight tool for a lightweight business. For centuries, the Islamic world was the great intermediary between East and West, and it was here that paper truly began its revolution. The technology is thought to have been transferred in the 8th century. A key moment was the Battle of Talas in 751 CE, when Arab forces defeated a Tang Chinese army. Among the prisoners of war were skilled Chinese papermakers. They were taken to the great city of Samarkand, and soon the first paper mill outside of China was established. From there, the technology spread like wildfire across the Islamic world to Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo. The availability of cheap, abundant paper fueled a golden age of learning, science, and literature. Vast libraries were built. Scholars translated the works of the ancient Greeks, Persians, and Indians, and made their own breathtaking advances in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy, all recorded on humble sheets of paper. From the Islamic world, paper finally made its way into Europe. Traveling through Moorish Spain and Sicily, it arrived in a continent that was still painstakingly copying its books by hand onto expensive parchment. The arrival of paper was a revelation. It spurred an industrial transformation, and for the first time, the written word could become a form of mass communication. It was this availability of cheap paper that was the essential final ingredient needed for the invention of Gutenberg's printing press in the 15th century, which would unleash the Renaissance and the Reformation. It was a long, slow journey, over 1,000 years, for this quiet technology to cross the world. But that single light sheet of Chinese paper, carried in the pack of a monk or a merchant, truly carried the weight of the future on its delicate surface. Let us turn our minds now from the things that were carried to the ideas that they carried with them. For the Silk Road was more than a conduit for goods. It was a road of faith, a channel for the silent, powerful migration of beliefs that would reshape the spiritual landscape of half the world. Of all the ideas that traveled these paths, none was more influential, more transformative than the gentle philosophy of Buddhism. Buddhism was born in India in the 5th or 4th century before Christ, long before the Silk Road was formally opened. But once the pathways were established, this new faith began its own peaceful journey. It did not travel with armies or conquerors. It traveled in the hearts and minds of merchants and in the quiet footsteps of wandering monks. The first people to carry the teachings of the Buddha eastward were traders, men like the Sogdians, who found in its message of compassion and mindfulness a philosophy that resonated with their own cosmopolitan lives. As they established their trading posts in the oases of the Tarim Basin, they also established their faith, building shrines and stupas, and sharing their beliefs with the local populations. The faith took root and blossomed. The oases that gave shelter to the caravans also became great centers of Buddhist learning and art. The most spectacular evidence of this is found in the magnificent cave temples that dot the Silk Road, places like the Mogao Grottos at Dunhuang or the great Buddhas of Bamiyan in Afghanistan, carved into a sheer cliff face. Here, the faith was rendered in stone and paint, and in these artworks we can see the story of its journey. In the art of the Gandhara region, in modern Pakistan and Afghanistan, the legacy of Alexander the Great's Greek soldiers met the new faith from India. The result was a unique Greco-Buddhist art style, where the Buddha was depicted for the first time in human form, with the wavy hair and flowing robes of a Greek god. This fusion of styles, this blending of East and West, was a hallmark of the Silk Road, a visual representation of its power to connect and create. As Buddhism spread into China, it was met not with resistance, but with curiosity and adaptation. Chinese pilgrims, brave and devout, began to travel west to the source of their new faith, to learn its truths and bring back its sacred texts. Monks like Faxian in the 5th century and the even more famous Zhang in the 7th century made epic journeys on foot to India, crossing the treacherous Taklamakan desert and the high Pamir mountains, facing incredible hardships. Their detailed travelogues provide some of the most vivid accounts we have of life along the Silk Road. Xuanzang's 16-year-long pilgrimage was so extraordinary that it became the stuff of legend, forming the basis for one of China's most beloved literary works. Journey to the West. When these pilgrims returned, they brought back hundreds of Buddhist scriptures, which were then painstakingly translated into Chinese. In China, Buddhism did not simply replace older beliefs, it blended with them, fusing with native Taoist and Confucian ideas to create new schools of thought like Qian or Zen Buddhism. It was a two-way exchange. Buddhism changed China, and China changed Buddhism. And it was not alone. Other faiths traveled these same dusty roads. Nestorian Christians, fleeing persecution in the West, found refuge and established communities all the way to the China coast. Zoroastrians from Persia brought their worship of fire, and the followers of the prophet Mani shared their belief in a universe of light and darkness. Later, the powerful new faith of Islam would spread along these same routes. Carried by Arab traders and preachers, the Silk Road was a true marketplace of ideas, a testament to the peaceful, powerful way a belief can travel, carried not by the sword, but by a simple conversation in a quiet corner of a bustling caravanserai. Let your senses awaken now as we explore one of the most delightful and enduring legacies of the Silk Road, the exchange of flavors, of foods and drinks that transformed the kitchens and tables of the world. This was a journey that you could taste and smell, a caravan of culinary wonders that connected cultures in the most fundamental and satisfying way. From the east came the treasures of the Spice Islands and the fields of Asia. Spices in the ancient world were worth a fortune. Their name comes from the Latin species, meaning special wares, and they were valued not just for cooking, but for medicine, for religious rituals, and as fragrant incense to purify the air. Imagine the scent of a caravan arriving from the east, carrying cinnamon and cassia from China and Sri Lanka, ginger and rhubarb. These pungent aromatic powders and barks were a revelation to the West. They added fire and fragrance to the cuisines of Persia, the Arab world, and eventually Rome and the rest of Europe, fundamentally changing the way people ate. The maritime routes of the Silk Road were so dominated by this trade that they became known as the spice routes, a testament to the power of these flavorful commodities. Another great gift from the East was tea. First cultivated in China, the practice of steeping its leaves in hot water to create a stimulating, comforting beverage slowly spread westward, along with the beautiful porcelain cups and pots used to serve it. Caravans carried compressed bricks of tea, which were so valuable they were sometimes used as currency, exchanged for strong Central Asian horses along a special route known as the Tea Horse Road, which connected China and Tibet. The ritual of preparing and drinking tea, a moment of calm and contemplation, traveled with the leaf itself, a quiet cultural exchange in every cup. But the road of flavors was a two-way street. From the West and from Central Asia, new tastes made their way to China. The Chinese were introduced to the cultivation of grapes, and with it, the art of making wine, a drink that became popular among the Tang Dynasty elite. They also received a host of new fruits and vegetables, cucumbers, figs, pomegranates, and alfalfa, which was crucial for feeding the heavenly horses they so desired. In return, the West received the sweet delights of the peach and the apricot. This grand agricultural exchange permanently enriched the diets of people across the entire continent. And what of the travelers themselves? What did they eat around their campfires in the desert, or in the bustling kitchens of a caravanserai? The diet of the nomads who often guided and protected the caravans was simple and hearty, based on their livestock. They ate mutton and horse meat, and drank milk from their sheep, goats, and camels, which they turned into yogurt and hard, sour cheese curds called karut that could last for months. Their most prized drink was kumis, a sour, fermented mare's milk, a staple of the steppes. Along the route, these simple foods mingled with the culinary traditions of the Oasis cities, where flatbreads, called Nan, were baked in clay ovens, and where the noodle and the dumpling made their appearance in various forms, from Chinese mantou to Turkish manti, a clear linguistic and culinary thread connecting the continent. The Silk Road created the world's first fusion cuisine, a lasting, delicious legacy that proves that the quickest way to understand another culture is to share a meal. Let us drift now to a time of supreme confidence, of dazzling brilliance, a time when the Silk Road reached its absolute zenith. This is the era of the great Tang Dynasty of China, which ruled from the 7th to the 10th century, an age so prosperous, so creative, and so open to the world that it is remembered as the golden age of Chinese history. During this remarkable period, all roads truly seemed to lead to one place, the magnificent capital city, Chang'an. Under the powerful Tang emperors, like the great Taizong, the trade routes were made safe. The dynasty projected its military power deep into Central Asia, pacifying the nomadic tribes and establishing a long period of stability, known as the Pax Sinica, or the Chinese Peace. For 150 years, caravans could travel with a security they had never known before, and commerce flourished. This safety and prosperity transformed Chang'an. It swelled in size, becoming the largest, most cosmopolitan, and most advanced city on Earth, a vibrant metropolis of nearly 3 million people. It was the undisputed center of the world, a magnet for merchants, diplomats, pilgrims, and students from every corner of Asia and beyond. Persians, Arabs, Indians, Sogdians, Turks, Koreans, Japanese, all flocked to the great capital, making its streets a living tapestry of humanity. What made the Tang era so special was its incredible spirit of openness. Unlike other empires that might have feared foreign influence, the Tang court embraced it. The city's elite were fascinated by all things exotic. They adopted foreign fashions, wearing Persian-style robes and Sogdian hats. They listened to foreign music, the lutes and flutes of Kucha, the symbols of India. 9 musical ensembles at the imperial court represented traditions from all across Asia. They were captivated by foreign entertainment, especially the energetic twirling Sogdian world dance, which became the craze of the capital. This was not a culture that felt threatened. It was a culture that was strong enough and confident enough to absorb the best of the world and make it its own. This confident cosmopolitanism fueled an unprecedented explosion of creativity. The Tang Dynasty is remembered as the greatest age of Chinese poetry. The immortal poets Li Bai and Du Fu, inspired by the vibrant life of the era, wrote verses that are still treasured today. Painting and sculpture reached new heights of expression, and artists were drawn to the court from all over the empire. It was also during the Tang era that a revolutionary new technology was developed and refined: woodblock printing. The first calendars, books, and almanacs began to be printed, and the oldest surviving printed book in the world, the Diamond Sutra, from the year 868, is a beautiful scroll from this period, a testament to the era's fusion of faith, art, and technology. For a time, it must have seemed as though this golden age would last forever. The city of Chang'an shimmered with a vibrant, powerful energy, a beacon of civilization. Its markets overflowed with goods from 1,000 lands. Its temples and monasteries welcomed all faiths, and its people looked out at the world with curiosity and confidence. This was the Silk Road in full bloom, a dream of global connection made real, a shining moment in time when the exchange of goods and ideas created not conflict, but a brilliant, dazzling, and unforgettable golden age. Let the shimmering image of Tang China gently fade, and let us travel forward in time. The centuries pass, dynasties rise and fall, and the Silk Road ebbs and flows. Now, we find ourselves in the 13th century. A new, immense power has risen in the east, the Mongol Empire. Under the great Khans, much of Asia is united under a single rule, and for a time, the old land routes are revived, safer and more traveled than they have been for generations. This is the world that a young man from Venice is about to enter, a man whose name would become synonymous with the wonders of the Silk Road, Marco Polo. In the year 1271, Marco, along with his father and uncle, merchants from the great trading city of Venice, embarked on an epic journey. They traveled overland, following the ancient caravan paths. Their destination, the fabled land of Cathay, China, which was now ruled by the grandson of Genghis Khan, the great Kublai Khan. Their journey took years, crossing deserts and mountains, passing through the ancient cities of Persia and the high plains of Central Asia. Finally, they arrived at the magnificent court of the Khan, who was intrigued by these strange men from the far west, and was particularly impressed by the intelligence and curiosity of young Marco. He took him into his service, and for the next 17 years, Marco Polo lived and worked in the heart of the Mongol Empire, a trusted envoy of the most powerful ruler on earth. And for a young man from medieval Europe, the world of Kublai Khan was a place of almost unbelievable marvels. Through his eyes, we can see the vast gap that existed between East and West at the time. He traveled throughout the empire on the Khan's business, and he saw things that had no equivalent in his home continent. He described great cities like Kinsay, modern-day Hangzhou, which he called the City of Heaven, a metropolis of canals and bridges, so vast and populous that it dwarfed any city in Europe. He wrote of wonders that were commonplace in China, but utterly unknown in the West. He described the Chinese using black stones, coal, to heat their homes, a fuel that burned longer and hotter than wood. He wrote of paper money, a concept alien to Europeans, who still traded in heavy coins of gold and silver. He marveled at the production of porcelain, the beautiful translucent ceramic that was so prized, and he gave Europe its first real descriptions of the geography, the customs, and the immense wealth of Asia. After 24 years away from home, the Polos finally made the long journey back to Venice, arriving in 1295. They were dressed in rags and spoke with strange accents, and at first their own families did not recognize them. When they told their stories of the Khan's summer palace at Xanadu, of cities with millions of people, of burning stones and paper that was used as money, many people did not believe them, and they thought the tales were fantasies, the wild exaggerations of a madman. Marco Polo was given the nickname Il Milione, the man of a million lies. But his story was written down in a book called The Travels of Marco Polo, and as the book circulated, it began to capture the imagination of Europe. It was a window, the first clear window, into a world that had previously been shrouded in myth and rumor. It was a data transfer, an upgrade to Europe's understanding of the planet. It provided a map, however incomplete, to the riches of the East. And though many doubted him in his lifetime, his book became an inspiration. It lit a fire in the minds of future explorers. Men like Christopher Columbus, who would sail west with a copy of Marco Polo's book in hand, hoping to find a new, faster route to the wonders that the Venetian had described. Marco Polo's journey was the story of the Silk Road made personal, the tale of one man's journey to the end of the world and back again, carrying not silk or spices, but a story that would change the map of the world forever. The story of the Silk Road, like all stories, has an ending, but it is not a sudden dramatic end. It is a long, slow fading, a gentle twilight, like a great river that over centuries changes its course, leaving its old bed dry. The caravans did not stop all at once. The bustling markets did not fall silent overnight. Instead, the world shifted. The tides of commerce and power turned, and the ancient land routes, the arteries that had nourished Eurasia for over 1,000 years, slowly, quietly, fell into disuse. One of the greatest reasons for this change was the rise of a rival, a new road, a road of water. From the earliest days, maritime routes had complemented the land journey, especially for the spice trade. But as shipbuilding technology and the science of navigation improved, the sea became a more powerful competitor. Ships could carry far more cargo than a caravan of camels, and they could transport heavy, fragile goods like porcelain with much less risk of breakage. The journey by sea was often faster and more economical. The final decisive moment in this shift came at the very end of the 15th century, when the Portuguese explorer Vasco da Gama successfully navigated around Africa and found a direct sea route to India and the spices of the East. Suddenly, European merchants no longer needed to brave the deserts and mountains of Asia, or pay the heavy taxes levied by the middlemen who controlled the old routes. They could sail directly to the source. The age of overland trade was beginning to give way to the age of maritime empires. At the same time, the political landscape of Asia was changing. The great Mongol Empire, which had provided the unity and security that allowed travelers like Marco Polo to journey in relative safety, had crumbled in the 14th century. The vast territory it once controlled fragmented into smaller, often warring states, and the roads became dangerous again, plagued by bandits and instability. Then, at the two ends of the road, the great empires began to turn inward. In China, the Ming Dynasty, which succeeded the Mongols, adopted more isolationist policies, suspicious of foreign influence and less interested in the trade that had defined the previous dynasties. They dramatically reduced the traffic and trade flowing from their end of the route. The final symbolic blow came in the middle of the 15th century. In 1453, the rising Ottoman Empire conquered the great city of Constantinople. The western terminus of many of the old routes, the Ottomans, now controlling the gateway between Asia and Europe, effectively boycotted trade with the West, closing the final doors on the ancient pathways. For Europe, which had grown accustomed to and dependent on the goods of the East, this was a crisis. It created an urgent, desperate need to find new ways to reach the riches of Asia. And so, the decline of the Silk Road became the direct catalyst for the next great chapter in global history, the Age of Discovery. The fading of the old land routes pushed European explorers like Columbus out onto the unknown oceans in search of new paths to an old world. The end of this dream was the beginning of another. The great road fell quiet, the caravanserais crumbled, the oases returned to a more local life. The long golden twilight of the Silk Road had come, leaving behind only memories and a legacy that would endure in ways no one could have imagined. And so, our long journey comes to its end. The caravan has reached its final destination. The camels are at rest, the merchants have sold their wares, and the great road itself has faded into the quiet landscape of history. But the story is not truly over, for the Silk Road was more than just a network of paths. It was a network of connection, and the connections it forged have never been broken. They live on, all around us, in the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the stories we tell, and the beliefs we hold dear. The legacy of this ancient network is profound and immeasurable. It was the world's first experiment in globalization, a testament to the enduring human desire to reach out, to see what lies beyond the horizon, to connect and to trade. It was a journey that transformed the world. It carried silk that dressed emperors and paper that fueled revolutions. It transported gunpowder that reshaped warfare, and the compass that would guide the next generation of explorers across the seas. It was a conduit for faith, carrying Buddhism to the east and Christianity to the west, creating a rich tapestry of spiritual belief across the continent. It was a great agricultural exchange, swapping the fruits and grains that would forever change the diets of millions. It was a marketplace of ideas, of science, of philosophy, of art, and of music, the echoes of which can still be heard in the melodies and masterpieces of today. The name itself, the Silk Road, has become a powerful metaphor, a symbol of peaceful exchange and shared prosperity. Today, new projects like the Belt and Road Initiative have adopted the name, seeking to evoke the spirit of that ancient connection in our modern world. And the road itself is not entirely gone. UNESCO has recognized its immense value to humanity, designating great stretches of it, like the corridor from Chang'an to the Tian Shan Mountains, as World Heritage Sites, preserving its memory for all time. The crumbling walls of a forgotten caravanserai, the serene face of a Buddha in a desert cave, the glint of a Roman glass bead found in a Korean tomb. These are the faint physical traces of that great dream. But the true legacy of the Silk Road is quieter, more personal. It is the thread of connection that runs through our shared human story. It is the proof that even in a world of vast deserts and towering mountains, of different languages and clashing empires, people can find a way to meet, to exchange, and to enrich one another. It is a story of resilience, of curiosity, and of the quiet courage of the traveler. So now, as you drift deeper into the peaceful realm of sleep, let the story of the Silk Road become your own. Imagine the soft footsteps of the camels, the gentle jingle of their bells, the vast star-filled sky of the desert. Let the path of dreams carry you on a gentle journey through the quiet landscapes of the past. The road is peaceful now. The journey is over. It is time to rest.